Has your neurologist ever mentioned your Parkinson score and you nodded along like you understood, but inside you're thinking, wait, what does it actually mean? Is 42 a good score? Is it a bad score? What does this number tell me about my future? If you've ever been handed a Parkinson score and felt confused, scared, or overwhelmed, this video is for you. Today I'm explaining what that score actually is, how doctors calculate it, and most importantly, what those numbers really mean for your daily life. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Kim. I walked through the Parkinson's journey with my mom for many years. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm a daughter, a real person who lived this from the inside, who sat in those neurology appointments with my mom, taking notes, trying to make sense of all the medical lingo. When my mom was first diagnosed, her doctor would rattle off abbreviations and lots of medical terminology. And honestly, I'd nod along like I understood, but inside I was thinking, okay, but what does this actually mean for her life, for our lives? How is mom's progression going to go? I took notes and would go home and decipher what he was actually trying to tell us. Mom was never given a score by her doctor, but I kind of wish we had been, because it would have stirred something inside me to research the score, find out about this scale that they use, and honestly, I believe it would have helped us see patterns and communicate better with her care team. You know, you may be wondering what these scores mean, feeling confused about what they stand for. And that's the purpose of this video, to explain your Parkinson's score, what those numbers mean, and how you can use this information. Now, your doctor might call it the MDS-UPDRS or the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale, but I'm just going to call it the Parkinson's score. It's the tool doctors use to measure how Parkinson's is affecting you across 4 big areas of life. And stick around, because I'm going to offer you a free printable worksheet that I created that you can use at home to track these same symptoms between doctor visits. I based it on the MDS-UPDRS that the doctors actually use. I think more than anything, it will help you and your loved one walk into appointments feeling prepared instead of scrambling to remember what's been happening. I'm going to show you exactly how to use it also later in the video. I'm curious if your doctor even gave you a score. And how did it make you feel when you got that score? Did they explain what it meant? Drop a comment below, because I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. Okay, so I'm going to start with the basics, the Parkinson's score, officially called the MDS-UPDRS, which stands for Movement Disorder Society Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale. Wow, that's a mouthful. But here's what it really is. It's just a tool that the doctors use to measure how Parkinson's is affecting someone across 4 big areas of their life. They're looking at physical symptoms like tremor, stiffness, slowness, but they're also looking at the mental and emotional side, things like anxiety, depression, memory changes. And they want to know how all of this is impacting daily life. Can you still button your shirt? Are you struggling to write? How is your balance when you walk? Doctors use this scale in routine clinic visits to track how things are progressing. It's also used in clinical trials to see if new treatments are working. And it helps guide medication adjustments, like should we increase the dose, try a different timing, or something new entirely. Here's the key thing to understand. A higher score means more impact from Parkinson's disease. But, and this is really important, a score is not your future. It's just a snapshot of this exact moment in time. That's it. Now, it tracks progression because they compare your score from one visit to the next. What is progression? Well, when they talk about that, they're simply referring to how Parkinson's changes over time. And here's what a lot of people don't realize. Progression isn't always steady or predictable. Some people have very slow progression over many years. Others might see changes more quickly, but then plateau for long periods. And sometimes what looks like progression is actually something temporary, like a medication issue, an infection, or increased stress. And those things can be addressed and improved. That's why tracking symptoms over time is so valuable. It helps you and your doctor see the real pattern, not just isolated moments. Okay, so here's how the scoring actually works. Every question on the scale uses a 0 to 4 rating system, and it's pretty straightforward. 0 means normal, no issues at all. 1 is mild. There's something there, but it's not really interfering with life. 2 is moderate. You're noticing it, and it's starting to affect things. 3 is severe. This is a real problem now. And 4 is extreme. This symptom is really impacting quality of life. Now, these scores aren't set in stone. They can change based on so many factors. Like, for example, if you're rating the symptoms when medication is working, which is what they call on time, or when it's worn off, which is off time, those two scenarios can be completely different and can look like two completely different people. And then there's stress, sleep quality, whether someone has a UTI or another infection, anxiety levels. All of these things can make symptoms suddenly spike. I remember Mom would have these periods where her tremor would get noticeably worse. And I'd immediately start panicking, thinking, oh no, is this progression? And then we'd figure out that she had a bladder infection or she hadn't slept well the last 3 nights. And once we addressed those things, her symptoms would settle back down. Have you ever experienced that, where symptoms suddenly jumped, but when you realized it was something temporary, like an illness or medication or timing? Let me know in the comments, because I think that's one of those things nobody really warned you about. Okay, so I'm going to recap what we've covered so far. Your Parkinson's score is made up of 4 different sections. Each section looks at a different part of how Parkinson's affects your life. The non-motor stuff, like mood and sleep, your daily activities, like getting dressed and eating, the physical symptoms your doctor observes, like tremor and stiffness, and any medication side effects you're experiencing. Each question in each section gets rated on a 0 to 4 scale that I was talking about. Then all of those individual ratings get added up to give you a total score. That total score is basically a snapshot of how much Parkinson's is impacting you at that exact moment in time. It's not a prediction of your future. It's just measuring where you are right now. Next, I'm going to go into a little more detail on the actual MDS-UPDRS that many doctors use. And hey, if this is already clearing things up for you, do me a favor and hit that like button. The more people that interact with the video by liking it, sharing it, commenting, subscribing, that tells me and YouTube that this is valuable information. And it helps other families who are searching for this kind of information to find this video. All right, let's dive into part 1 of the scale, which focuses on non-motor symptoms. It's the invisible side of Parkinson's, the stuff that doesn't show up in a tremor or shuffling walk, but is absolutely real and often incredibly hard to deal with. This section tracks things like memory and thinking changes. Maybe someone's having trouble finding words or following complex conversations. It looks at hallucinations, which can be really scary for both the person and their family. It measures anxiety and depression, apathy, that loss of motivation or interest that people sometimes mistake for laziness or not caring. But it's actually a symptom of the disease. They're asking about sleep issues, restless nights, acting out dreams, insomnia, fatigue that rest just doesn't fix, pain that shows up in unexpected places, and bladder and bowel problems, which people often don't want to talk about, but are so common and so frustrating. Here's how this translates into real life. This part of the scale is tracking the emotional weight that Parkinson's carries. It's the anxiety before doctor appointments. It's the confusion that seems to come out of nowhere. It's exhaustion that makes you feel like you're moving through molasses, even though you've slept for 8 hours. It's losing motivation to do the things you used to love, and then feeling guilty about it. Or worse, having other people misunderstand and think you've just given up. So I want to ask you, what non-motor symptom has been the hardest for you or your loved one to cope with? Because in my experience, this is often the stuff that steals quality of life, even more than the motor symptoms. Part 2 is about motor experiences of daily living, and this is where we start to see how Parkinson's affects independence in really practical ways. This section
asks about speech. Is your speech getting softer, harder to understand? Eating and swallowing. Are you coughing more during meals, or does it take longer to finish eating? Getting dressed. Can you still button buttons, manage zippers, or tie your shoes? Handwriting. Has it gotten smaller and more cramped? They want to know about walking and balance. Are you shuffling, freezing in doorways, or when you make a turn? Do you feel unsteady, like you might fall? And here's the emotional truth of this section. This is where independence quietly changes. It's the moment when someone who's been fiercely self-sufficient suddenly needs help with a shirt button, or when walking to the mailbox starts to feel like a risk. These aren't dramatic changes. They're small losses that add up, and they really can be heartbreaking and affect the person's quality of life. What's one daily task that used to be simple for you or your loved one, but now takes real effort or planning? Think about that. Now, let's move on to part 3. This is the motor examination. This is what happens in the doctor's office when you're actually there and the doctor is watching you move and testing your body's responses. They're checking tremor, at rest, with your hands in your lap, and when you're holding them out in front of you. They're testing rigidity, how much resistance there is when they move your arms or legs. They're watching finger taps, hand movement, foot taps, looking for speed and rhythm. They're observing how you stand up from a chair, how you walk, your posture, your balance. This is all important information, but here's something I wish more people understood. Someone can look pretty good in a 15-minute exam and still be struggling every single day at home. The exam is only a snapshot. It doesn't show the cumulative exhaustion. It doesn't capture what happens at the end of a long day, or when stress is high, or when medication has worn off. Have you ever felt like your exam didn't fully match what life is really like between visits? I think a lot of people feel that disconnect, and it's okay to speak up about it. Your doctor needs to hear what's happening in real life, not just what they can observe in that short little window. I noticed that every single time I took my mom to the doctor. I purposely planned her doctor appointments in the morning when she was doing much better and her medication was working. I did that on purpose so that it wasn't a struggle for her to go. But he saw the best times of her day. If we had made the appointments in the afternoon during her off time, he would have seen a much different scenario. I kind of wish I would have taken her later in the day so he could have experienced exactly what she's going through when she was suffering. I think that was something that I should have. Anyways, let's move on. Part 4 of the MDS-UPDRS. It looks at motor complications related to medication. And this is where things get complex because treating Parkinson's is always a balancing act. This section tracks off time. Remember, those are the periods when the medication isn't working well and symptoms come back. It measures dyskinesia, which are those involuntary movements that can happen as a side effect of levodopa. It asks about predictability. Does medication wear off at the same time every day or is unpredictable? And it also looks at painful cramping or dystonia. Now, here's the truth. Sometimes you're not sure if you're fighting the disease or fighting the medication. My mom would have periods where her tremors were so strong that she was exhausted from all the extra movement and the concentration needed to simply hold a fork or a pen. It felt like we were always chasing this sweet spot between giving a little bit more of the medication or giving her medication a little bit sooner, trying to find that balance where she had enough medication to function, but not so much that the side effects were stealing her quality of life. Do you struggle more with the disease itself or with the medication side effects, or both? Because I think this is one of the hardest parts of managing Parkinson's disease, and it deserves more conversation. Okay, so now here's something really important that connects to the other videos I've done on this channel. and it's going to help you understand Parkinson's research so much better. Remember when I talked about the vitamin B3 trial, the NOPARK study with the 400 patients in Norway? That trial measured success using this scale. It used the MDS-UPDRS total score. They were looking for a difference of just 5 points between the treatment group and the placebo group over a 1-year period. Now that you understand how this scale works, that makes more sense. A 5-point improvement could mean less tremor, better ability to dress yourself, improved walking, real meaningful differences in daily life. That's what they're measuring in all of these clinical trials. Same with the stem cell trials I covered. Both the one in Japan and the one in the US used MDS-UPDRS Part 3, that motor examination section, to see if those transplanted cells were actually making a difference. They're looking at things like, did the tremor decrease? Is rigidity improving? Is the gait getting better? Here's why this matters for you. When you read about new Parkinson treatments and they say something like, it showed a 7-point improvement in the MDS-UPDRS, or slowed progression by 30% as measured by the MDS-UPDRS Part 3, you now know exactly what that means. You can evaluate whether it's a meaningful change for real life. Different treatments target different aspects of Parkinson's disease, and now you have the language to understand what researchers are actually testing. This is also why I make these videos, to help you understand the research that's out there. So when results come out, you're not just hearing numbers, you're understanding what those numbers mean for your life or your loved one's life. If you haven't seen my video on the vitamin B3 trial, I'll link it at the end of this video. It'll make so much more now that you understand how the MDS-UPDRS works. Okay, so what do the total scores mean? When you add up all 4 parts of the MDS-UPDRS scores, you'll get a total score that can range anywhere from 0 to 260. And the doctors use that score to track progression over time, to guide medication adjustments, and in research to study whether new treatments are working. Generally speaking, lower scores, 0 to 30, suggest mild impact. Moderate scores, 30 to 60, suggest moderate impact. Higher scores, 60 plus, suggest more severe impact. But here's what I really want you to hear. 2 people with the exact same score can be living completely different lives. One person might have a higher score, but have a strong support system, adaptive equipment, and good medication management, and they're doing pretty well overall. Another person might have a lower score, but be isolated, struggling with depression, and without access to good care, and their quality of life would be suffering. The score is useful information, but it's not the whole story. Do you feel like your score or your loved one's score reflects the real quality of life? That's a question worth thinking about. Okay, now as promised, I created a free printable worksheet inspired by this scale that you can use at home. And I want you to pause the video right now and go grab it. Seriously, pause the video. The link is in the description below. Go ahead and grab it. I'll wait. It's a link to a Google Drive document. It's a PDF, so everyone should be able to download it and view it instantly. Okay, got it? Good. Because I want you to have this ready for your next appointment. This is the tool that's going to help you feel prepared instead of caught off guard. Here's how it works. The worksheet has different sections broken down just like the MDS-UPDRS form that doctors use. You'll have sections for non-motor symptoms, daily living activities, and motor symptoms, each with that same 0 to 4 rating scale we talked about earlier. You can fill out this whenever you're noticing changes, or you can do it on a regular schedule, maybe once a month, to track patterns over time. For each section, you'll rate the symptoms based on what you're actually observing at home. Then add up all the scores in that section. Once you've completed all the sections, you'll have section totals that you can enter on page 4, which gives you a snapshot overview. Now, this isn't meant to replace your doctor's assessment. They have specialized training in how to rate these things. But what this does is give you language to describe what's happening. It helps you notice patterns. And when you walk into that appointment, instead of saying, oh, things seem worse, you could say, over the past month, I've noticed the tremor has gone from a 1 to a 3, and we're seeing more freezing episodes. That kind of specific information helps your doctor make better decisions about the treatment. Okay, so what to do with the scores? Once you have these scores tracked, what do you actually do with them? Well, first you can look for patterns. Is there a time of day when symptoms are consistently worse? Are certain symptoms showing up together? That's the kind of insight that can lead to real solutions. Maybe adjusting medication timing or identifying triggers that you hadn't noticed before. Second, bring this to your appointments. Show your doctor the trends. If you're seeing sudden changes, that's worth discussing. If things have been stable, that's good information too. And if you're feeling like life is harder than the score suggests, say that out loud. Your experience matters more than any number. Now, here's some questions to ask your doctor, which I've also included on the worksheet. If you're looking at your loved one's scores and feeling confused, here are some questions. Number 1, what part of this score is concerning to you and why? Number 2, are there symptoms we could improve with medication adjustments or other interventions? Number 3, what would you expect this score to look like in 6 months or a year? Number 4, are there any non-motor symptoms we should be watching more closely? You don't have to be a medical expert to ask good questions. You just have to pay attention to what's happening at home and speak up. Now, for the person with Parkinson's disease, if you're the person living with this disease and you're watching this, I want you to know that you're the expert on your own body. These scores are meant to help you and your doctor communicate, not to define you. If something feels off, if your quality of life isn't matching with what the numbers suggest, speak up. You deserve to be heard, and your experience is the most important data point there is. Here's why understanding this scale matters. Parkinson's doesn't just affect movement, it affects identity, it affects independence, confidence, relationships. It changes how someone sees themselves and how they move through the world. And I think it's one of the most powerful things we can do as caregivers and as people living with Parkinson's disease is to name these changes, to talk about what's really hard, to ask for help, to advocate for what we need. So I want to ask you one more question. What is the one thing Parkinson's has changed for you that people don't usually see? I'd love to hear what your answer is. If these real-life explanations are helping you make sense of Parkinson's disease, I would love for you to subscribe to this channel. Every Tuesday, I'll post a new video breaking down some sort of Parkinson's research, a symptom, treatments, etc. in plain English, no medical jargon, just real talk from someone who's lived it. I'm going to try to create a video every single week. Sometimes it's hard, but that's my goal. And one more time, if you've ever been given an MDS-UPDRS score and didn't really understand what it meant, tell me about that moment in the comments. What did you wish someone had explained to you? The MDS-UPDRS is a tool. It's useful. It helps doctors communicate and track change. But you are not a score. Your loved one is not a number on a chart. And Parkinson's disease, as hard as it is, as much as it takes, does not get the final word on who you are or what your life can be and still hold. Thanks for being here. Please be kind to yourself and to others, and I'll see you in the next video.